across to the other side. Sharon Gaffney joining us again for a look at what's making headlines. Sharon, you're starting no surprise with the coverage out of Germany about the country's final TV debate before Sunday's elections.
Yes, lots of reaction, Will, to that final debate as the 7 candidates who were in the running to replace Angela Merkel as Chancellor crossed swords. Let's start with the Frankfurter Allgemeine, which says the last word on the debate, the true final round, is yet to come when voters go to the polls on Sunday. As to the substance of the debate, there's a cartoon in Der Tagesspiegel taking a swipe at how little some of the candidates had to say on certain foreign policy issues, thorny subjects like the EU, NATO and Afghanistan. Taking a broader look now at the election, Der Spiegel takes a closer look at one of the candidates, Armin Laschet, Angela Merkel's successor as leader of the Christian Democrats. It blames him for the slow motion collapse of Merkel's CDU, arguing that the Laschet disaster could see the Conservatives face a historical debacle as voters take to the polls. It warns that a disastrous showing for the CDU could have lasting consequences for the stability of German politics.
And many papers also picking up on this being the end of an era, Angela Merkel having led the country for 16 years.
Yes, and the Chancellor's legacy is being debated right across the media for the last few weeks, especially today. According to The Guardian, her legacy is double-edged. The British newspaper says that while Merkel is credited with keeping the EU together during more than a decade of rolling crises, she's also displayed a lack of vision, it says. It compares her negotiation of each crisis to a driver on a foggy road. The Washington Post, meanwhile, says the departure of Merkel provides an opening for other European leaders to step up to the plate as the continent prepares for what it says will be a major shake-up of its unofficial hierarchy. Among the favourites to fill the Chancellor's loafers are French President Emmanuel Macron and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi.
Well, let's move on to another big story now. You've been looking at sort of the Spanish reaction to the arrest of the Catalan separatist leader Carles Puigdemont.
Yes, and the detention of the Catalan separatist leader is making the headlines right across Spain. El País says Puigdemont's arrest will test the will of those involved in negotiations on the potential granting of new powers to the Catalan region. Those talks between the Spanish government and Catalan authorities resumed less than 10 days ago. As for the Catalan media specifically, La Vanguardia's front page notes that nothing is yet decided as to the fate of Puigdemont, despite his arrest. While he was stripped of his parliamentary immunity earlier this year, it reminds us that an appeal to that decision is still ongoing in Brussels.
Let's turn now to the Quad Summit, which takes place in Washington this Friday.
Yeah, coming hot on the heels of that diplomatic spat, Will, that saw the sinking of that contract between France and Australia. The Quad Summit is being closely watched in China. On its front page, the Global Times says delegates will be cooperating with one another with the aim of containing Beijing and countering its influence. But the newspaper says the summit, involving US, Japanese, Indian and Australian leaders, will be incapable of inflicting substantial harm. Here in France, Le Figaro maintains that the time has now come for Asian nations and countries in the Indo-Pacific region to choose their camp, whether that be Washington or Beijing. It notes that Moscow is also courting several capitals in the region, including Jakarta and Kuala Lumpur.
And let's change gears now. Finally, a tip for anyone trying to figure out how much their boss is paid. If it's a man, a lot has to do on his voice, it seems. Tell us why.
Well, the deeper and more manly the better, seemingly, says Slate magazine. So an article on its French website claims that disparities in pay aren't just based on gender or appearance. New research suggests the salaries of male CEOs with deep voices are almost 7% higher than those of men with higher pitched voices. The study also interestingly found that the companies with the fewest number of women on their boards were more likely to be run by men with deeper voices.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm far from a CEO, but I think after this, I'm going to go and say, I want a raise. I need a raise. All right. Thank you very much, Sharon. Sharon Gaffney with a look at what's making headlines. Time now for a quick break, and then Live from Paris continues. I like that.